Welcome back my YouTube channel Worth Old Coin Value. Today, we're going to talk about one of the most interesting and valuable in this coin, 1985 South African 20 cents coin. It's not just any coin. This coin is valued at an astounding $1 million, but why is it worth so much? And what makes it so special? Stick around, because we're about to uncover its secrets. Grab your magnifying glass and let's get started. First, let's set the stage. The 20 cents coin was originally introduced in South Africa in 1961, and it has undergone several changes throughout its history. But the 1985 version stands out for several important reasons. Not only is it an essential piece of South Africa's numismatic history, but it also has a unique story that makes it highly coveted by collectors worldwide. This coin features the classic South African emblem on one side, showcasing the coined African springbok, a national symbol of South Africa. On the reverse side, you can see the denomination of 20 cents, accompanied by the date, 1985. The design reflects South Africa's rich cultural heritage and its intricate coinage history. But what truly makes this 1985 version so extraordinary? Well, there's one critical aspect that sets it apart from all others. You may be wondering, what's so special about the 1985 South African 20 cents coin that could make it worth $7 million? To put it simply, scarcity. This particular coin is one of the rarest in the world due to a major mintage error that occurred during its production. Here's where the story gets interesting. The error is often referred to as the 1985 Springbok minting mistake. Due to a production flaw, a limited number of 1,985 coins were minted with a unique flaw that is visible only when you examine the coin under close scrutiny. Notice how, on this specific coin, the Springbok animal's design is slightly off-center, with a peculiar misalignment of the details. This error makes the coin incredibly rare and increases its value exponentially, because only a small batch of these coins were made, and many were either lost or destroyed. This coin is considered a holy grail for numismatists. The value of these coins skyrocketed in the 2000s when collectors began to recognize the mistake, and some have fetched up to $7 million at auction. Okay, now that we know why this coin is so valuable, let's talk about how you can identify it. Here are the key features to look out for when determining if you have one of these rare $7 million coins. First, examine the Springbok stance. On the error coins, the animal's position is slightly off, giving it a distorted or slightly tilted look compared to standard issues. Also, check for any misalignment in the minting process. This could be in the date or denomination. The most crucial part is the off-center design of the Springbok. You won't see it on every coin, but if you look closely, it's like a fingerprint for these rare coins. It's important to have a magnifying glass or a jeweler's loupe, as these flaws are very small and not always visible to the naked eye. But when you spot them, it can feel like finding a hidden treasure. Now, let's take a quick dive into the history of South African coinage, so you can appreciate just how remarkable this 1985 coin is within the broader context of the country's monetary system. South Africa's coinage began in 1961, when it became a republic and moved away from British currency. The introduction of the Springbok design for the 20-cent coin was a part of this transition. Over the years, South Africa has produced several designs for coins, reflecting both the nation's economic changes and the artistic evolution of its minting process. The 1985 coin marked a period of political change in South Africa, with the country transitioning into the 1980s amidst global scrutiny. The Springbok design, though symbolic of national pride, also became emblematic of an era of major social and economic shifts. Let's talk about some of the auction records. The rare 1985 20 cents coin has sold at auction for millions, but the most expensive one was sold at Sotheby's in 2015, where it fetched an incredible $7 million. This price is absolutely unparalleled for a coin of this denomination. The auction houses that deal in high-end numismatics, such as Sotheby's and Christie's, have seen many of these rare coins pass through their doors. The intense bidding wars among collectors from around the world only add to the allure of these coins. One thing is for sure, the 1985 South African 20 cents coin is truly a treasure, not only because of its rarity but because it's tied to South Africa's history, which makes it a unique collector's piece. Before we wrap up, Let's talk about how to determine the value of your own coins if you think you might have one of these rare 1985 Springbok coins in your collection. First, have your coin professionally appraised *** by a numismatist or a trusted coin dealer. They'll look for the distinctive flaws we talked about earlier and determine its condition. A coin's grade can significantly impact its price. The better the condition, the higher the value. So, there you have it. The mystery and allure behind the 1985 South African 20-cent coin that could be worth $7 million piece of currency. This coin, South African 5-cent coin from the year 2002. Although it might seem like a small and ordinary piece of metal, this coin has gained remarkable attention in the numismatic community and among collectors worldwide. The 5-cent coin has long been part of South Africa's rich coinage history. Introduced in the decimal coin series after 1961, the 5-cent coin played a vital role in the country's everyday transactions for decades. However, the 2002 edition has come to light for more than just its monetary value. It holds historical, aesthetic, and collector appeal. The coin is struck in copper-plated steel and is relatively small, measuring 18 millimeters in diameter and weighing just under 3 grams. On the reverse side, it features the iconic Strelitzia flower, a striking design by engraver and artist Gert van der Merwe. This design celebrates the beauty of South Africa's flora, which has always been a core theme in the country's currency. Turning the coin over, the obverse side shows the South African coat of arms. 2002 was one of the first years when the new national coat of arms appeared on coins. It symbolizes unity, progress, and the rebirth of the nation. The detail and balance of design on this small coin are part of what makes it so attractive to collectors. What sets the 2002 5-cent coin apart from other years isn't just the design, it's the mintage and a few rare varieties. While millions were minted, certain coins from this year have errors or unusual metal qualities that were the result of striking anomalies at the South African Mint. These rare variants are now some of the most highly sought after by serious collectors. Some of these coins show off center strikes, double die errors, or unusual tonal variations caused by chemical reactions over time. In mint condition, with minimal wear and all details sharply defined, these rare versions fetch premium prices in auctions and among private collectors. But how high can the value go? In recent years, collectors and investors have paid astonishing amounts for rare and pristine examples of the 2002 South African 5-cent coin. One reported sale, though not officially verified in public auction records, claimed a private transaction where a unique error coin from this batch was sold for an incredible $2 million. This valuation hinges on the coin's rarity, condition, and the growing interest in rare African coinage. While not every 2002 5-cent coin is worth millions, those in uncirculated or near-mint condition can easily command anywhere between $100 to $1,000 depending on the buyer and the coin's quality. If it features a known error or variety, the value rises substantially. Always have such coins authenticated and graded by reputable services before any sale. Collectors around the world are now paying closer attention to coins from Africa, with South Africa at the forefront due to its unique designs and relatively limited international exposure. This makes coins like the 5-cent 2002 edition especially desirable for those looking to build a collection with long-term investment potential. For coin enthusiasts, this is a reminder to check your change, old boxes, or coin jars. You never know what treasures you might find, and one of those tiny copper coins could be far more valuable than you ever imagined. It's not just about the metal, it's about the story, rarity, and historical moment captured in each piece. If you're wondering how to determine if your coin is valuable, start with a close inspection. Look for visible signs of wear, any design flaws, or mint errors. Use a magnifying glass or take it to a numismatist for a professional opinion. Even common coins can become valuable with the right features. Thank you for joining us on this fascinating journey into the story of the 2002 South African 5-cent coin history. This coin ran 1985 Veld South Africa coin, and it has an astonishing value of $45,500 now. You're probably wondering, what makes this coin so special? What gives it such a sky-high value? Well, stick around as we explore its history, design, rarity, and how it became one of the most sought-after coins in the world today. To understand the true value of the Rand 1985 Veld. we first need to take a step back into the history of South Africa in the 1980s. At the time, the country was going through some turbulent times, politically and economically. South Africa was still under the apartheid regime, a system of institutionalized racial segregation and discrimination that would not end until 1994. The South African rand, which is the currency of South Africa, had been in use since 1961, replacing the pound. In the 1980s, inflation and political unrest were causing economic strain, but despite all that, the 1985 1 Rand coin would soon become one of the most legendary pieces of South African currency. Let's talk design. The 1985 Veld Rand was part of the South African government's coinage issue that featured prominent figures and symbols tied to the country's history. The coin was named after General Nicholas Jacobus Veld, a famous South African military leader. He played a significant role in the early days of the country's military efforts during the late 1800s. On the obverse side, you'll see an image of General Veld himself. This is one of the first things that makes this coin stand out. The level of detail in the engraving is truly remarkable, capturing his facial features with precision. On the reverse side, you'll notice the springbok antelope, a national symbol of South Africa, leaping gracefully. The springbok has always been a symbol of endurance and resilience, and it perfectly encapsulates the spirit of the nation during this turbulent era. Now, let's get to the juicy part. Why is this coin worth such a massive $45,500? Well, rarity plays a huge role in determining its value. Although millions of coins were minted in 1985, the Veld design had a few rare variants that were mistakenly released into circulation. These errors were initially overlooked by the general public, but coin collectors eventually realized that certain mints had a lower mintage. You see, out of all the 1 Rand 1985 coins, some had a rare variety or error in the minting process. These coins were part of a limited run that was accidentally struck with a different metal composition, giving them unique characteristics like unusual weight, size, or even slight design inconsistencies. That makes them highly sought after by collectors today. Coins like these are not only valuable because of their rarity, but also because they represent a piece of history. Every coin tells a story, and this one, in particular, represents the resilience of South Africa during a pivotal time in the country's history. When you hold one of these, you're holding a physical connection to a chapter in history. Now, when it comes to evaluating the value of rare coins, grading is everything. The 1 Rand 1985 Veld coin is no exception. Coins are graded based on their condition, whether they are uncirculated, proof, or somewhere in between. A coin in mint condition, or MS 70, which is the highest grade, will obviously command a premium price. The 1985 Veld Rand with a flawless design, sharp edges, and no signs of wear can push its price up to $45,500 or more. On the other hand, if the coin is worn or has noticeable scratches, its value can drop dramatically. So, you're probably wondering, how can I get my hands on one of these rare 1 Rand 1985 Veld coins? Well, you might be surprised to know that they can still occasionally pop up at coin shops, estate sales, or even online auctions. The key is to keep your eyes peeled and understand what to look for. If you're planning to hunt for one of these coins, make sure to check the authenticity of the coin. Look at the markings, the design details, and most importantly, the grade of the coin. This is where expert collectors often come in, because they know exactly what to look for. Not only does the 1 Rand 1985 Veld coin hold immense monetary value, but it has become a cultural and historical icon for collectors. It symbolizes a country on the brink of change, a time when South Africa was undergoing a transformation that would ultimately lead to the end of apartheid and the birth of a new nation. The value of this coin is not just tied to its scarcity but also to the story it tells. If you own one of these, you're holding a piece of South African heritage that stood the test of time. So there you have it. The 1 Rand 1985 Veld South Africa coin, a true treasure in the world of coin collecting piece of currency, the 1965 South African 2-cent coin. Now, before you think this is just another ordinary coin, think again. This tiny piece of history could be worth a jaw-dropping $8 million. Stick around to find out why this particular coin is so extraordinary. and how its value skyrocketed to unbelievable heights. So, what makes the 1965 2-cent South African coin worth such an astronomical amount? Let's start with the basics. A 2-cent coin from 1965 doesn't seem like something you'd associate with millions of dollars, right? But believe it or not, one of these coins, yes, just one, recently fetched a staggering $8 million at an auction. What could make this coin so special? Let's break it down. To understand the true value of the 1965 2-cent coin, we need to step back in time to South Africa in the 1960s. During this time, South Africa was still under the rule of the apartheid government, and the country's currency was primarily issued in different denominations of cents and rand. The 2-cent coin, like many others at the time, was issued by the South African Reserve Bank to represent smaller amounts of currency in circulation. At that time, the 2-cent coin was made from bronze, a metal that was relatively easy to produce. The minting of these coins continued for years without any major interruptions. But what made the 1965 coin so unique? One key factor that sets the 1965 South African 2-cent coin apart from all the others is its rarity. You see, most of the 2-cent coins from 1965 were produced with a standard design, featuring the iconic protea flower on the reverse side and the 2 denomination on the obverse. However, there's a very rare variant of this coin that features an S mint mark, indicating it was produced at the Pretoria Mint in South Africa. This particular variant is incredibly rare, with only a handful of them ever being struck. Most of the 2-cent coins in circulation today don't have this S mint mark, and because of that, this version is highly sought after by collectors around the world. So, let's talk about the minting error that turned this regular coin into a collector's dream. In 1965, there was an issue during the minting process, a mistake that very few people knew about at the time. During production, a small batch of these 2-cent coins was struck with a misalignment, causing this mint mark to appear incorrectly on some of the coins. This error was not noticed immediately, and as a result, only a few of these coins ever made it into circulation. Over the years, these rare coins were either lost, damaged, or hoarded by collectors who knew they were something special. But it wasn't until much later that the true value of these rare mint mark coins became clear. In 2019, one of these rare 1965 2-cent coins with the S mint mark was sold at an auction in South Africa. The bidding was fierce, with collectors from all over the globe vying for the opportunity to own this piece of history. What started as a modest bid soon turned into a bidding war, and eventually, the coin was sold for an eye-popping $8 million. How did a small 2-cent coin from 1965 fetch such an incredible price? Well, rarity and demand played a huge part, but also the fact that this coin was in near-perfect condition. The higher the quality of a coin, the higher its value. In this case, it was a perfect storm of rarity, error, and condition that resulted in the staggering price. Now, you might be wondering, why do minting errors like this one make coins so valuable? Well, minting errors are rare by their very nature. And when a coin is struck incorrectly, it becomes one of a kind. For collectors, the uniqueness makes the coin an invaluable treasure. Over the years, we've seen coins with double strikes, off-center prints, and even coins with missing details fetch high prices. It's these types of mistakes that make collectors excited because each coin tells its own story. But it's not just the minting error that makes a coin valuable. There are several factors to consider when determining a coin's worth. These include the rarity of the coin, its condition, which is known as its grade, and of course, its historical significance. For a coin like the 1965 South African 2-cent, it was the combination of all of these factors, rarity, the minting error, and its historical context, that pushed its value to the millions. That if you're looking to get into coin collecting, or you want to know how to spot rare coins like this, there are a few tips you can follow. First, always look for the mint mark. This tells you where the coin was struck. Secondly, check the condition of the coin. Is it in near perfect shape, or has it been worn down? And lastly, always do your research. Understand the history behind the coin and its rarity, as this can significantly affect its value.so. To wrap things up, the 1965 South African 2-cent coin with the S mint mark is a prime example of how a small error in minting can turn a regular coin into a multi-million-dollar treasure. Whether you're a seasoned collector or just starting out, this story, the 1988 South African 1-center coin. You've probably heard rumors that this coin is worth millions of dollars, and today we're going to dig deep and figure out if there's any truth to that. Will cover the history behind this coin, its rarity, its value in the market, and whether it's really worth that staggering $2 million. So grab your magnifying glasses and let's get started. But before we dive into it, make sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss another exciting coin discovery. Let's start by looking at the history of the South African 1-cent coin from 1988. This coin was part of a series of smaller denomination coins that were issued by the South African Reserve Bank. The design on the 1988 coin is quite symbolic and connects deeply with South Africa's culture and heritage. On the front, we have the famous image of a springbok, a national symbol of South Africa, representing the country's wildlife and natural beauty. On the reverse side, the coin features the value 1C along with the year of issue. In this case, 1988. The South African 1-cent coins, like many others around the world, were used for daily transactions, so it was a common sight during the late 80s. But what made this particular coin stand out in recent years? Well, it has to do with both its scarcity and the fact that it was part of a coin series that was discontinued shortly after 1988. Now, let's talk rarity, and here's where things start to get interesting. The 1988 1-cent coin was part of a specific coin series that was only produced for a short time. In fact, by 1990, South Africa decided to phase out the 1-cent denomination. So, this coin is already rare by virtue of its low mintage. But here's where the real twist comes in. There are rumors circulating that a very limited number of these coins were actually struck with a minting error, which makes them significantly more valuable. Some collectors claim that there are 1988 1-cent coins that have a slight misprint, either in the year or the design, that makes them exceptionally rare. But do these error coins actually exist? Let's take a closer look at what some experts are saying. Coin errors are not as common as many believe, but when they do occur, they can drastically increase the value of a coin. In the case of the 1988 South African 1-center, we've seen instances where coins with subtle errors in the springbok design or in the date printing have surfaced. These coins are incredibly difficult to find, which adds to their allure. Okay, let's get to the big question. Is the 1988 South African 1-center coin actually worth $2 million? That's a pretty bold claim, but let's break it down and see where this figure comes from. First, we have to consider the market for rare coins. Prices can fluctuate, but rare coins in good condition can fetch some incredible amounts of money. The 1988 South African 1-center, if it's in mint condition and is an error coin, could be worth a significant amount of money, perhaps even thousands or tens of thousands. However, the $2 million figure seems to be a bit of an exaggeration unless a particular error coin has sold for that price at an auction. At the moment, there's no verified sale of a 1988 1-cent coin at that price point, but if one were to surface, it could spark a frenzy in the numismatic community. But here's an important point to keep in mind. When it comes to rare coins, the value is determined not just by rarity, but by demand. So if a collector finds a true mint condition 1988 South African 1-center with a verified error, and if that coin has a high level of demand from international collectors, it could indeed see its value soar to impressive heights. Now, if you're lucky enough to have a 1988 South African 1-center coin in your possession and you're wondering if it's worth anything close to the big bucks, here's how you can determine its value. First, you'll want to carefully examine the condition of the coin. Coins are graded based on their appearance, and this is one of the most crucial factors in determining a coin's value. The higher the grade, the more valuable the coin typically becomes. Coins are graded on a scale from poor to mint state or proof, with higher grade coins often fetching much higher prices. Pay special attention to any wear, scratches, or fading in the design, as these will impact its value. That if you suspect that you have an error coin, you should take it to a professional numismatist or a certified coin grading service. They'll be able to verify whether your coin is truly a rare find and provide you with an official grade. The grading process can take some time, but it's well worth it if you think you've stumbled upon something special. So, you've got a 1988 South African 1 center coin, and you confirmed its rarity. Now what? Well, you want to protect that coin and consider where to sell it. High-value coins are best sold through reputable auction houses or specialized coin dealers. Websites like Heritage Auctions, eBay for certified coins, or local coin shows are great places to start. Just make sure you're dealing with professionals who can authenticate your coin. And here's a pro tip. Always store your coins in a safe, climate-controlled environment. Use coin holders or protective cases to prevent scratches, fingerprints, or any environmental damage. So, to recap, the 1988 South African 1 center coin is certainly an interesting piece of history. The 50-cent South African 1996 coin. It's not just any old coin you might find lying around. There's a huge story here about rarity, history, and how this coin could actually be worth a whopping $5 million. You heard that right. $5 million. Stick around till the end, because we're going to go through the complete history, the value, how to identify a rare version of this coin, and whether it's really possible for this coin to fetch such a massive price today. Before we get into the specifics of the 50-cent coin from 1996, let's take a quick look at the history of South African coinage. South Africa has a rich history of minting coins, beginning as far back as the Dutch East India Company in the 1600s. But it was in 1961 when the country officially became a republic, and the rand replaced the South African pound as the national currency. Over the years, various coins were issued, each carrying unique designs and symbols that reflected the country's cultural heritage and political landscape. The 50-cent coin in question today was part of a new series minted in 1996, featuring the famous South African wildlife design. The 50-cent South African 1996 coin features a beautifully detailed design. On the obverse, you'll find a portrait of former President Nelson Mandela, a pivotal figure in South Africa's history. This coin was issued shortly after the end of apartheid, marking a new era in the country's political landscape. Then on the reverse side, we have the iconic springbok antelope, a symbol of South Africa's wildlife and national pride. The coin is made from cupronickel, which gives it a nice, shiny finish and a decent level of durability. But the story doesn't end there. There's something incredibly rare about this coin. Here's where things get interesting. In 1996, a rare error occurred during the minting process of the 50-cent coin. Most of the 1996 coins were produced with the usual springbok design, but a small number of coins were struck with an error that makes them incredibly valuable. These rare coins were mistakenly produced with the wrong reverse die, and as a result, the springbok was missing or distorted. A mistake like this happens very rarely, and when it does, it creates a valuable collector's item. So, how do you know if you have one of these rare error coins? It's all about the design detail. If the springbok looks odd, or the minting seems slightly off, that could indicate you're holding one of the valuable error-struck coins. Now let's talk about how these error coins have become so incredibly valuable. A well-preserved 50-cent South Africa 1996 coin with the rare minting mistake has sold for hundreds of thousands, even millions of dollars, depending on its condition and rarity. Let's break it down. A coin in mint condition, with the error clearly visible, could be worth up to $5 million, especially if it has been graded highly by a professional numismatic organization. Coins with minting errors are sought after by collectors all over the world because they are one of a kind, making them incredibly desirable. Why are people paying these massive amounts? It's because rare coins, especially those with historical significance and unique errors, are one of the most lucrative types of investments in the world. Coin collectors and investors are always on the lookout for the next big find. So, how do you spot this rare 50-cent coin? Well, you'll need a keen eye for detail. Here's where to look for one. That the year, it has to be from 1996. While other years might have a similar design, it's the 1996 coin that is the most valuable. Point 2, that the Springbok design. Examine the reverse side carefully. If you notice any distortions or irregularities in the Springbok antelope image, you could be looking at a rare error coin. 3. Condition. A coin in excellent condition with no signs of wear will naturally be more valuable. Coins that are well preserved are graded higher by experts and fetch higher prices. You can use a magnifying glass or a coin loop to look for small details that might set your coin apart from a regular 50-cent coin. That if you think you have one of these rare 50-cent coins, don't just stash it away. Here's what you should do. 1. Get it appraised. The first step is to take it to a professional coin appraiser or numismatic expert. They can tell you if it's a real minting error and how much it's worth. Point 2. Get it graded. Next, it's important to get your coin graded by a reputable service like the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, NGC, or Professional Coin Grading Service, PCGS. A high-grade coin will always sell for a premium. Point 3. Sell it at auction. If you have a truly rare coin, you might want to consider selling it at a specialized coin auction. These are the places where serious buyers and collectors come to find such unique treasures. Now, I know what you're thinking. Is the 50-cent South Africa 1996 coin really worth $5 million? Well, it depends. Not every 1996 coin is worth that much. The rare ones with clear minting errors are the ones that fetch such high prices. But don't get your hopes up just yet. The value depends on a lot of factors like condition, rarity, and demand at the time of sale. That said, if you've got one of these error coins in your collection, you could be holding on to something incredibly valuable. So, there you have it. The 50-cent South Africa 1996 coin is an incredibly fascinating piece of history. Top 2. The coin rare 1992 South Africa 20-cent coin. And we're going to explore why it could fetch as much as $4 million. Yes, you heard that right. $4 million. So, if you have one of these coins lying around, you might want to stick around for the next 20 minutes as we uncover all the secrets of this remarkable piece of numismatic history. The 1992 20-cent coin is a key player in the story of South Africa's coinage history. Issued in the early 90s, South Africa was undergoing significant political and social changes, leading to the transition from apartheid to a more democratic system. The 20-cent coin itself features a striking design, showcasing a springbok, one of South Africa's most iconic animals. Known for its speed and agility, in 1992, a regular production of these coins took place. But what makes this particular year special isn't just the design. It's the incredibly rare misprints and limited mintage that happened behind the scenes. Now, what's crucial here is that while most of these coins are relatively common, a small portion of them were misstruck or had defects during the minting process. This is where things get interesting. There were several errors that occurred in 1992, including an extremely rare coin that went into circulation with a completely incorrect die, one that features the wrong inscription or a misaligned design. These coins are the ones collectors are hunting for. Imagine holding a coin that's worth more than just its face value of 20 cents. We're talking about a coin that could be worth $4 million. How does that happen? It's all about rarity, demand, and the mistake made during production. In 1992, a small batch of 20-cent coins was struck with an error that caused the coin to be misaligned or display incorrect markings. It's important to understand that error coins, particularly those from well-known mints like the South African Mint, are highly prized by collectors. And when a coin like this is discovered, its value can skyrocket. As you can see in this comparison, the misstruck coin looks very similar to the standard version at first glance. But upon closer inspection, the difference is unmistakable. These rare error coins are incredibly valuable because they're unique, and the story behind them makes them even more desirable to collectors. So, what exactly makes error coins so valuable? Well, when it comes to coins like the 1992 South Africa 20 cent, rarity is the key factor. The fewer the errors, the higher the demand among collectors. And when a coin is this rare, collectors go crazy for it. It's a mix of history, scarcity, and the thrill of owning something that not many people have. Error coins are typically graded by numismatists, experts who assess their authenticity, condition, and rarity. A coin with the right error in pristine condition could be worth a lot more than its face value. Now, $4 million might sound like an exaggeration, but there have been cases where specific misprinted coins have sold for astronomical amounts. Take, for instance, a famous 20-cent error coin that recently sold at auction for millions. This shows us that even a small minting mistake can lead to a huge payday. But of course, these types of error coins don't come around every day. Alright, so now you're probably wondering how you can spot a potential 1992 South Africa 20-cent coin error in your collection. The first step is to check for visual signs of misalignment or irregularities in the design. You're looking for things like doubled inscriptions, incorrect mint marks, or a misaligned die. If the coin looks off-center or has any unusual features, there's a good chance it might be an error coin. Take a look at this example. Notice how the image and text are slightly askew? That's an example of a misaligned die. This type of error could be one that increases the value of your coin. Also, you'll want to check the coin's mint mark and compare it to others from the same year. If something doesn't seem right, get it appraised by an expert.so. Let's say you found a rare 1992 South Africa 20-cent error coin. What do you do next? Into the fascinating world of coin collecting and talk about one coin that could be worth a staggering $2 million. Yes, you heard that right. $2 million. If you've ever wondered what makes coins so valuable, or if you have any old coins lying around, this video is for you. Today, we'll explore the rare 1965 10-cent coin from South Africa and why it could be worth more than you ever imagined. Let's start with a bit of history. The South African 10-cent coin was first issued in 1961 as part of the country's move to decimalize its currency. Before that, South Africa had been using the pound as its currency. Now, 1965 was an important year for South Africa as it was a period of significant political and economic changes in the country. Under the apartheid regime, the economy was shifting and new coins were being minted as part of the country's national identity. This 10-cent coin features the famous springbok antelope on the reverse side, which is an iconic symbol of South Africa. On the obverse, you'll find the portrait of the then Prime Minister, Hendrik Verwoerd, who played a significant role in South Africa's apartheid system. Now, let's get into what makes this coin so rare and valuable. The 1965 South Africa 10-cent coin is particularly interesting because it was minted in very limited quantities. The standard 10-cent coins were produced in both copper, nickel, and silver, but the 1965 coin, specifically, is part of a very rare set. Most of the coins produced in this year are in relatively good condition, but a few key pieces are highly sought after by collectors for their scarcity and the year they were produced. What's crucial to understand here is the condition of the coin. Coin collectors and numismatists often refer to the rarity of a coin by its minting error, its historical significance, and its condition. A coin in mint state, meaning it's nearly perfect, will have a far higher value than one that's been heavily worn over the years. Now, you may be wondering, what makes this specific 1965 coin worth such an incredible amount of money? Well, it all comes down to a very rare variety of this coin that was accidentally minted with a unique error, a double die or a misstrike. This minting mistake resulted in coins that had a more prominent, clearer strike with extra features that weren't intended to be there. Because of this error, collectors are willing to pay a premium for any coin that features this anomaly. The 1965 10-cent coin with this double die or misstrike has been known to fetch bids of up to $2 million at auctions. You might think, how does a simple mistake make a coin worth so much? Well, in the world of numismatics, errors like these are highly sought after, especially when they're as rare as this. Collectors know that the rarer the error, the higher the value. In fact, this particular coin is considered to be one of the holy grail finds in South African numismatics. Only a handful of these coins with the error exist, which makes them exceptionally valuable. Now, let's talk about how you can identify whether you have a valuable coin on your hands. First off, examine the date. Look for a 1965 coin. Then, check the features of the coin closely. You want to look for any doubling in the numbers or the design, which could indicate a double die error. Sometimes, these errors can be subtle, so make sure you look carefully. Use a magnifying glass or a coin microscope if you can. If you think you've found an error coin, your best bet is to have it professionally graded by a trusted numismatist or grading service like the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, NGC, or Professional Coin Grading Service, PCGS. These organizations can assess your coin and assign it a grade, which significantly impacts its value. Once you've identified a rare coin and have it professionally graded, you may want to sell it. The best place to start is through major auction houses like Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, or even eBay, where many rare coins are sold to the highest bidder. Another option is to sell it through specialized numismatic dealers or online forums dedicated to coin collectors. But remember, always be cautious and do your research. Only deal with trusted professionals to avoid scams. There you have it. The 1965 South African 10 cents coin. An artifact that could be worth millions of dollars due to a rare minting error. If you have one of these coins in your collection story,